two quick questions for you. What's the update on Marshawn Lloyd? Is he expected to play this week? And then with Raleek Brown, what's the plan for him the rest of the way? And was the plan always to wait for these last three games so he could get those 4 games played?
Yeah, Marshon's done well this week. We've been pleased with him. If we don't have any issues going forward, expect him to make the trip and hopefully be available. Yeah, I mean, obviously the 4 game gives you some options with there's Raleek and a couple other guys on our roster, so we'll continue to just know that we may have a few more guys available now that did not exhaust those 4 games at the beginning, kind of knowing that any postseason game doesn't factor into that. So that obviously makes it a little bit easier to make those decisions for us. So yeah, Raleek, anybody else, we'll continue to evaluate them on a week-to-week basis and what they can contribute. And if guys got games available and can contribute, then we'll certainly be ready to use them.
When you say you hope to have Marshon available, are there still things he has to show or clear to be able to play?
No, it's been positive this week, but these, anytime you're coming back from an injury, there's a progression to it. It's not like you're throwing them out there on a Tuesday practice and just like straight back into like a live scrimmage, which obviously, you get in a game, it's a full live situation. So there's progressions from any injury. He's trending well. I think barring anything unforeseen, I think he'll be available for us on Saturday.
Thanks.
Hey, Lincoln, you've said this year that you think the offensive line is more talented than the group you had last year. And obviously it's taken a little bit of time to kind of come together a little bit. But when it comes to integrating transfers specifically at offensive line, is that just kind of a unique position because of kind of the chemistry you need to operate well as a group there? And knowing that requirement of chemistry, how do you hope to balance developing offensive linemen through high school recruiting and also taking advantage of the transfer portal and getting the right guys when that process comes available?
Yeah. I mean, different for every group. This group, there was just certainly a lot of turnover with, brand new center. I mean, really you're different, with Dedich and Monheim both playing different positions this year. I mean, you have 5 new players you have a new player at every position, right? So there was either change or turnover at every single position on the offensive line. And I think some of the reason it was maybe it's been slowed just a little bit. I mean, I think points a couple things. I mean, first, Gino's injury, who was starting for us at the beginning of the year, you lose him for the entire season. I think not having Kingston available basically the entire spring, and then Pregnon wasn't even here. And then came in with an injury that had to get fixed, and so missed a good chunk of summer and wasn't full go in camp. I would point to a few of those things, and that just some of these guys were not available. And a lot of this, kind of started around like when the season started or even in fall camp. And you certainly would like to be able to start to build that continuity earlier. That's, when you're taking a transfer, you never know exactly, when they're going to be available in the beginning. You don't know, are they coming in with an injury? I mean, it, but at the same time, do you turn down somebody you think is going to be a really good player because they're not going to be available in spring ball or whatever the case may be? It's not like these things happen so fast. It's you got to make those decisions pretty quickly. So, I mean, I think a combination of all that has been maybe a reason why it took this group a little longer to gel. And then, like I said, you can't replace last year, even though it was in a different system. Those guys have played a lot of ball together, and you could tell. I mean, I think like all positions, as time goes on, we want to get more and more reliant on bringing in talent, whether it's high school players, whether it's a transfer early on in their career, where you can develop and have that continuity and have a little bit less turnover. I mean, you never want to go into a year on an offensive line where all 5 guys are playing 5 different positions. I mean, there's 5 completely new faces at each position. And so, I mean, I think it has started to come together. We've ran the ball well. here the last few weeks, done some really good things. I've been excited about the progress and feels like the group is starting to gel, and obviously that's going to be important here for the last couple.
And a quick one, 2 games in a row, Caleb's lost a fumble on a sack. How big of a concern and coaching point is just his ball security when he's scrambling for you?
That's got to be better, especially the one, especially the one against Washington, just because there was, there was a potential opportunity to throw the ball away, but certainly, worst case scenario there, you just get sacked. We're probably going to be able to run the clock out and that be the last possession of half. The one against Cal, you certainly want him to hang on to, but that, he was getting ready to throw the ball and just kind of, sometimes they just catch you right at the inopportune time. But yeah, the one against Washington can't happen. The ball security's got to be better. If we get pressure back there, we certainly got to be able to hang on to it. And that'll, it's super important. We've done a good job, hanging on to them, last year in the middle part or early part of this year, but we've had a few too many on the ground the last few weeks.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Luca?
Hey, Lincoln. Don't think we got the chance to ask on Tuesday, but I was just curious what went into the decision-making process just to elevate specifically Sean and Brian to that, co-DC spot and just that, having 2, co-defensive coordinators, why specifically them as opposed to other, guys on staff? Just what do you see or hope from them for these last 2 games of the season?
Yeah, it just felt like you got to look at each situation in its entirety, and where are we at right now? What do we need, specifically to play as good as we possibly can here in this closing stretch of the season? And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good experience in that room. A lot of guys, I think, and you could have went with different individual guys or a different combination, but just felt like for what we needed in terms of unifying the group, bringing the guys together, really, letting this be a point where we can really rally and close the season strong. Just felt like they were the best fit. I mean, not at the expense of anyone else, but just felt like the combination of their experience, their ability to work together, their ability to motivate the guys, to get the guys ready to play, to come up with a great plan, make personnel decisions. I mean, just all the things that a coordinator is going to have a big hand in. I felt like that was the right way to go. And then, specifically for both, I think that's also a reaction on my part to the situation, and knowing that we have a short window here. It's not like you got a bye week or you got a bunch of time, for any potential changes to happen. And it is a lot to put on just one single person's plate. And certainly everybody on the defensive staff and the entire staff has been asked to step up in a situation like this. But, with those 2 guys being able to, whether you want to say divide or share some of the responsibilities on this type of timeline with what we have in front of us, all that together certainly was the right decision.
RJ?
Hey, Lincoln, what would you say have been the biggest advantages and the biggest challenges of the 24 recruiting cycle for you guys to this point?
I would say the biggest advantages are, I mean, I think people have seen proof of concept now. I think, people have seen now, 2 years in, and we'll obviously, see how this one finishes. A lot will happen here, and this last closing stretch is going to go really quick. But 2 years in a row that this program is back to relevance. I mean, we've been in, here we are 2 years in a row where we've had major games right here at the end of the season that have a lot riding on them, major matchups we've been in. We've positioned ourselves 2 years in a row to be right there, and recruiting's gone up. You got the facility incoming. I mean, you've got all kinds of great things, and so yeah. I mean, I think our knowledge base of, especially from a West Coast standpoint of who we're recruiting, getting to know the area, getting to know these players, getting to know these coaches, all of that has drastically increased, and I think our comfort level there is certainly in a different place than it was a year ago. So yeah, no, I think it's, I think like a lot of things, I think it's, I don't want to use the word settled in, but you're certainly a little bit less frantic at this point, like trying to pack a roster as opposed to, being very selective and working through it. And yeah, and then the obvious momentum. I mean, here's what's happened. I mean, you got a handful of these guys that through their sophomore, junior, senior years, they're these years in high school when they're really starting to think about recruiting and what colleges and all that. I mean, when we got here, you got to think of it like the guys that were sophomores and juniors and seniors 2 years ago. I mean, they haven't experienced, the highs of what USC football can be, right? They experienced, something just a little bit different. And what's happening now, I think we feel it with this class more. I think we'll feel it more the next year. I think we'll feel it more the next year. Now these young guys are going to be growing up watching USC in a period where it's certainly relevant and it's right in the middle of it all, and with clear momentum and trajectory. And that's the impact of that will continue to be felt more and more as time goes on. And obviously the better job that we can do, the more we can win, the more successful we can be. You do major things like invest in this program, you build this facility, individual players coming and doing really well. I mean, all of that is just going to continue to add and just kind of feed the monster and build this thing. And so we got to continue to keep that up. We got to continue to push, and that momentum will just continually gain as time goes on.
Thank you.
Antonio?
Lincoln, Oregon's a program you guys run into on the recruiting trail a lot. Obviously, you want to win the game because of the opportunity that's in front of you, but does it take an added significance because of the recruiting trail and how much you guys compete with them there?
And you compete with obviously so many people to a point. So I mean, yeah, they're a good program. Got a good talent base. They got a very good football team this year. Always be careful about that. I know people get so caught up into one game, to one game here or there. I don't know that one game sways anybody. If we go win, is that going to all of a sudden sway a bunch of people to SC? If we don't go win, is that all of a sudden going to sway a bunch of people to Oregon? I've never really subscribed to that. I mean, I think that's a snapshot in a moment in time. In reality, this recruiting process for these guys, no matter what class they're in, there's a lot of twists and turns throughout it and a lot to unfold. And I think, most people are going to look at the entirety of it. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's I do certainly think it's an important game, but I think it's an important game because it's, two good programs going at it. And, two programs certainly in the last, 10 years and kind of a little bit different spots, I guess you would say. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important because it's important to this league right now and this year right now. And there's, good players on both sides and, good coaches on both sides. And so, yeah, I think certainly you want to win more of them than you don't, right? You want to win these big games because the culmination of winning a lot of those is obviously nothing but positive for the program, recruiting, everyone. But one game here or there, does that make the difference? I don't know. I don't know that I could say that. I got asked a question a lot, about like Texas OU, being in that rivalry or some of the bigger games there. And yeah, that week and during it, it feels like everything to fans, coaches, everyone. And that's what everybody's talking about. And the reality is, no matter what, like next week, play UCLA here at home on senior day, like that's going to be a big damn game too, like no matter what, and on and on. So yeah, I don't want to, I'm certainly not minimizing it. It's important. It's a great opportunity for us. But there's certainly some big picture to it as well.
We have time for one more. We'll wrap it up with Brian Carchi.
Hey, Lincoln. A couple of defensive guys mentioned this week just not watching the film after Washington, kind of putting it behind them. I guess I just wonder, in a general sense, as a coach, how do you usually handle that with a difficult loss? Balancing, being accountable and correcting specific mistakes versus, especially in this sense, just kind of starting anew and moving forward and not even thinking about what happened.
Yeah, rarely like this. We're a big evaluate what it was, evaluate what went wrong, see the good, see the bad, be very transparent about it with our players, be very transparent about it with ourselves. We certainly spent time on the film and going through it as coaches. We didn't completely ignore it with the players, but at the same time, with all that's transpired and all that you're trying to do here in a week, you got to weigh that because you only have so much time with them. And I think given the change at coordinator, going back and sitting and spending all types of time harping on that did not make the most sense to us in terms of getting this team. Because again, the only goal right now is like get this team, get our defense ready to play this week as well as we possibly can. Like that's the only goal, the only focus. And so we went forward with that mindset, and obviously given Coach New and Coach Odom, a chance to put their personality into this plan in terms of not even necessarily schematically, but just how we want to attack, how we want to play. And it's hard to do that when you spend so much time going back and rehashing, what we did with a different coordinator. I mean, it is what it is. So yeah, obviously it hadn't happened very much. I could probably count on one hand the number of times we've kind of just flushed the game and moved on to the next one. But this was a situation where we didn't completely flush it, but we didn't spend as much time on it as we would a typical game.
Thanks.